with all of our interactions with people who are doing acquisitions, there's a lot of people who talk about wanting it, but there's very few people who actually go through with it, especially in the face of rejection and rejection and rejection.
This is not a pretty business. This is not something that you think you can passively run.
To go from zero to even 10 million in 1 year is pretty outstanding.
If there's one thing that moves the needle for me the most, it's cold calling. I've made over 2,000 calls. The success is in the work that you're avoiding. You're just chickening out of doing the work.
Welcome back to Jackquisitions. Today we have an awesome operator here. He just bought his own plumbing business out in Denver, Colorado. Elias, what's going on, man?
What's happening? Thank you for inviting me.
Elias, we have a very interesting way that we connected. You were cold calling, or actually, I think it was emails. You sent out a bunch of emails to prospect businesses you were looking to buy. Me being the person I am, likes to talk to everybody. And so we got on a phone call and had a few phone calls actually about just the space and you and me and how we could all potentially work together. But it didn't end up panning out, and you ended up buying a plumbing company in Colorado, correct?
Well, I come to find out it's more of a water heater company more than anything. 90% of their revenues are done servicing and installing tankless water heaters, but I'm trying to grow up into a real plumbing company. But yeah, basically what you said, you hit the nail on the head.
We had that conversation, by the way.
Yeah, we did.
Not to cut you off, I just we had that conversation before you bought me, saying like, hey, I think this is one of those tier 2, like water heater only, and you're going to run into a scale issue at some point, but super interesting.
Yeah. Well, now I'm here. Now I gotta find a solution. So, but no, when I first contacted you, I was just cold calling operators throughout the country every single day, from literally Long Island, New York to some place in California. I was looking all over the nation, and I think I tried calling you. My normal default is to call, and if I can't get through, I'll send an email or a text message. My answer is I'll get a yes, I'll get a no, but I'm not going to tolerate no answer. So until somebody tells me to F off or they tell me a yes, I'll keep harassing them. So, but yeah, that's how we connected.
One of the most common and expensive mistakes that I see in acquisitions in the home service space is not getting serious about accounting. Whether you're buying a business or you're already running one, you need the right financial partner to save you time, money, and headaches. That's why we partnered with Appletree Business Services. They are a one-stop shop that'll help you get through the due diligence process, but then they'll partner with you after to help you out with payroll and bookkeeping and taxes. They know home services. They're fluent in tools like ServiceTitan and HouseCall Pro. If you're tired of the surprise tax bills or an accountant who ghosts you when you really need them, Appletree's the upgrade you deserve. Listeners of the show can get a free tax and financial review, and if you're buying a business, they'll give you 10% off quality of earnings. Just head on over to appletreebusiness.com, talk to Patrick, click the link, let them know Jack sends you, and they will take care of you. Yeah, one of the reasons I actually fielded your call, though, was really interesting. You did an amazing job of A, reaching out to me from a personal level, but B, you also had a decent backing in terms of you had gotten in touch with some amazing ex-operators who were willing to be a partner in your business. Can you talk about, like, scrolling back to how that all started from your exiting your previous industry and then going into, I don't want to ruin it for the audience, going into where you are now?
Sure. So yeah, this is not my background. I could spell HVAC. I could spell plumbing. That's about the extent of my knowledge. And I'm only 24. So it's not like I'm not terribly old or anything like that. I'm still pretty young. Most people look at me like I'm a child. I basically, if I rewind the clock enough, when I was 21 years old, which was literally only 3 years ago, I was selling appliances at an appliance store in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was bitten by the bug to want to go out and acquire businesses, entrepreneurship through acquisition, and I used to read a ton of Warren Buffett biographies and stuff growing up. And so I was always fascinated by the subject. But when I was 21, that's when I finally wanted to pounce on it. So I ended up quitting my job, and I owned some real estate at the time. So my natural progression was, oh, I want to upgrade from residential housing to commercial. And well, hey, there's a big senior population in Phoenix, so why don't I do assisted living? So I quit my job and I very quickly realized that my alligator mouth overloaded my hummingbird ass because it took me almost 2 years to find my first business. And then I ended up acquiring an assisted living facility in Phoenix. And again, same thing. I don't know anything about assisted living. It was just a mind-numbing process of cold calling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people until somebody finally sold me their business. I learned a lot throughout that process, but about literally, I think 4 or 5 months into running that business, I realized I hate healthcare. I don't know, this just doesn't turn my crank. And so it was a completely disappointing buildup of 2 years. And I also realized that I was really spinning my gears because a lot of people that would want to sell their business, they want to sell the real estate with it. And people were holding on to property values from 2020, 2021, and COVID decimated that industry. So, just a mortgage on the property was more than most of these businesses were making. So I just felt like I was wasting my time and I was getting really irritated. So naturally, starting to think, what do I want to do in the future? And at the time, I was actually at my property, and I was calling we had like a little orchard, like bunch of trees on the property. And so I had a gentleman come over to trim all the trees, and I wanted him to do the citrus trees. And this is May of last year. And I said, "Could you do our citrus trees?" And he said, "No, well, you got to do that in January. It's not the time of year, so you have to call me out here in January." And so naturally, I said, "Could you put me on the schedule?" And he said, "Well, I use a paper calendar for all my bookings, and the paper calendar doesn't come out until October. So call me in October to schedule you." And in my mind, I was thinking, "What the? Is this how the trades are run?" I mean,
Yeah.
there's just what? And so naturally, I started thinking about the trades. And it's May in Phoenix, Arizona. It was hot as hell. So it really didn't take much to figure out I want to do air conditioning. I want to do HVAC. But I know nothing about it. So, I'm smart enough to at least know that I don't know everything. So the first thing I did is I went to surround myself with people that do know. Um, so again, I just kind of went for the top. And I mean, I reached out to Tommy Mello. I was texting him. He set up a call with, again, I'm a salesman by trade.
Which, I mean, that's a huge first step to just be like, hey, I got a hold of Tommy Mello. He runs a, $400 million garage door business, but I was able to grab his phone number and start texting him.
Well, it's online. You just use the databases. There's like
Yeah.
usphonebook.com or instantcheckmate.com.
There's a lot of them.
So he ended up setting a call with the CEO of his portfolio company, and they ultimately said no. So I just kind of went down the line, got through to Chad Peterman. He scheduled a Zoom call like months out and then missed the call, and I kept trying to chase him down. But ultimately, I ended up calling the owner of a company called George Brazil, which is a household name in Phoenix, Arizona. And lo and behold, God love his soul, Jim Probst answered, and he invited me to have a tour of his office. And he has like a 40 or 45,000 square foot office in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And with 250 or 260 employees, it's a mammoth operation. And man, I sold my heart out. I sold my heart out, and the whole idea was, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm young and I have piss and vinegar in my blood, and I want to kind of go out and do this. I just need somebody to show me the way. And he was willing to take me under his wing, and so I'm very grateful to him. He's taught me everything that I know about this business. He's mentored me throughout the process. He also tried to scare the hell out of me to not do this. He went through a period of
Which
time.
is good.
He went through horror
I
story
always say that's
after
good.
horror story
Yep.
after horror story, and I'm pretty sure I actually even called you one day, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, Jack, God, my chairman's been telling me
Tell
all
me
these
these aren't
stories,
real.
and I just
Yeah.
wanted your confirmation." I was like, "Is this real or is he bullshitting me?" And you said, "No, it's real." I mean, I know you've had a tough start in the beginning, and I talked to a few other people. I think, is it Nathan Lindley? Is he a guy in?
Yeah.
I got
Nathan's a good guy down in Texas.
talked to him too, and yeah, I think he told me he was like a week away from bankruptcy once, and until he turned everything around. So, man, I was scared for a bit, but ultimately I said, "Hey, whatever. I made my bed. I got to lie in it. I decided to do this, so I'm going to push forward anyway." Um,
Super interesting. So that's where, I mean, in terms of people who actually want it, there's a lot of people who talk about wanting it, but there's very few people who actually go through with it. And with all of our interactions with people who are doing acquisitions, one of the greatest signs that someone is really going to complete that acquisition is actually their tenacity to be able to do cold calls and talk to people in industry. And so I know with me that blew me away in the fact that you're able to get a hold of kind of these top guys at these top companies and then keep going, right? Just keep pounding
Yeah,
pavement until
I appreciate that.
it's a huge indicator that somebody is going to be successful is their ability to just continue, especially in the face of rejection and rejection and rejection. Because most people in the industry give up. They give up after 3 or 4 times, and then they go, this doesn't work, and then they go on and they go onto a website like Biz Buy Sell and try to find something. But truly, you get the best deals through that networking. And so, how did you find Hot Water Now?
Cold call. He didn't answer a cold call, so I sent him a cold text message, and then he responded, and then we got into a yeah. I mean, every deal that I've ever had, whether it was the assisted living business I bought, the water heater company I just bought, or if all goes to plan next week, I should be picking up a plumbing, air conditioning, and electrical business. That was a cold call. Um, Everything has come off market, and so literally, you spend $1,000, you could buy a leads list of like every business you could possibly imagine in a particular industry in your market, and you just go down the list and you just keep calling and calling, and eventually people will tell you to it. They'll give you a no, or they'll give you a yes. And so you just keep making the calls, and they're mind numbing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm like, they suck. I don't enjoy doing them, but in order to be successful, you have to just do what's necessary. I don't get to do what I'm comfortable doing. You have to succeed in doing what's necessary. So I have no choice.
Well, there's also a really interesting term. What is it? It's market stop. No, not market stop. I forget. Someone was talking about it at SM Bash. But the point being is that we as owners get inundated with so many emails. Oh, I received 7 yesterday. Hey, do you want to sell your business from some third party that's sole job is to acquire or to set appointments for business acquisitions. And so to actually stand out and to physically find phone numbers and physically call owners, if I got a voicemail that said, "Hey Jack, I'm a local business owner and da 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 da," I'm much more inclined to respond to that or at least pay attention to that versus the 10,000 emails I'll get in a year asking to buy my business. Like I just don't even respond to most of them.
Yeah, well, you have to
And then
stand
not to
out.
mention now with AI garbage, like the AI garbage, they just blast AI, and you're like, I know this is AI. I know, like you've not looked at my business. Half of the time, it's the wrong person. They're saying, "Hey, John Wilson." I'm like, I'm not
I've
John Wilson,
actually,
buddy.
I've
You got the
even
wrong
learned,
business.
I don't even introduce myself when I make a cold call. People don't even know my name until I'm about halfway through the call. I actually got rejected today. I called a guy in Denver, and he said, "First of all, I don't even know your name. I mean, who are you?" And no, I'm not interested in selling my business. But it's simple. You just call someone, "Hey, Jack, yeah, yeah, hi, I'm in the plumbing and air business. I was just, curious if you'd entertain an offer on your company. I'm just looking to grow within the market or something." And you just come up with something. And I also realized there's a difference between a suspect and a prospect. So a suspect is somebody that will return your calls. A prospect is somebody that will actually sell you their business. And so I also realized you could say everything wrong on the phone. If somebody's really motivated to get out of the business, you're not going to have. It's like if a girl likes you, it doesn't really matter what you say. The relationship moves forward, right? It's kind of like when you're texting, you're trying to get the right words to say or something like that. She's not interested, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a volume game. I mean, you literally have to go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of contacts with people, and eventually you'll figure out, okay, this guy's desperate. And I don't mind maybe going into the story of Hot Water Now, but even then, just to take a step back, I realized I needed a team first because I don't know what I'm doing. If I immediately go to start looking
Hmm.
at businesses, I mean, I'm not even gonna know what to say or how to do due diligence or how to run it. I mean, I don't know any of that stuff. So I wanted to get a team in place of strong operators that know what they're doing, and that could really kind of give me the clout and expertise that I need to open up doors. I actually, in hindsight, I don't know if it was necessarily important I did this, but I wanted to get somebody I didn't have to explain about. So technically, the CEO of Costco owns 2% of this company, and he's definitely the biggest hitter I was able to get in contact with. So he ran Costco for 12 years, and he was worth like a third of a billion or something like that. So if you Google him, there's pictures of him with like Joe Biden and Obama and all that stuff. So, but the reason for that was like, okay, when I go to do due diligence or acquisitions in the future, I wanted to when I approach a bank, I'm just not an idiot saying, "Hey, I'd like a couple $1 million, please." It's I'm a representative of my team. We have a very deep bench of operators. We're looking to acquire and operate and scale these companies. So and so, it gives me a lot of borrowed credibility, as they say it, I think, in the marketing industry, borrowed credibility. So I needed to ride the coattails of my team, which I've definitely taken advantage of that, and I'm very appreciative of it. Um, but ultimately, I also realized, I don't know if you've ever read the book Good to Great, but it's my favorite business book. And they talk about who's on the bus is infinitely more important than where the bus is going. And I'm very glad I took the opportunity to build a team first, because we've been able to morph and pivot. Because we even flew out to Iowa to go look at deals. We were going to go to Long Island to look at deals. Then ultimately, Jim stopped me and said, "You can't run these businesses remotely. Do you want to live in Iowa?" I said, "Hell no, I don't want to live in Iowa." He said, "Why the hell are we going out here to look at?" So he's taught me a whole ton, and he's definitely set proper expectations. And he reminded me very frequently that this is not a pretty business. This is not something that you think you can passively run, or that, it's all the biz buy sell listings that say turnkey operation, absentee owner. I mean, that's all just
Owner.
that's all
Never true.
BS. That's all BS. So
Yep.
he taught me a lot. But ultimately, I realized I wanted to live in Colorado, because I was sick of Arizona and I wanted to move out there. So I just I said, okay, I'm just gonna look in Colorado, and that's all I'm gonna do. And I just need to turn over every rock in Colorado, and eventually I'll find a deal. So like I mentioned, I just bought a leads list of every home service business in Colorado, and I just started making my way through it. And eventually, after making enough cold calls, actually, this deal that we might be closing next week was actually the very first person to say yes. This is a deal that's just been taking a long time to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I got in contact with the seller of Hot Water Now, and had a conversation with him.
So sorry to stop you before you go on to that. I think this is a really interesting topic. How many people did you call before you got your first, I'd say, viable yes, right? Because there's lots of people who are like, yeah, maybe, if you give me $200 million, I'll sell you anything. But realistically, how many calls did you have to make to get to a position where you had a legitimate yes?
Oh, I mean, I've lost count. I mean, I know I've made over 2,000 calls in total over the last
To the Denver
couple
market
years.
alone?
No, not in the Denver market alone. In the Denver market, I've made several hundred for sure. But I don't know the exact details,
Okay.
but it was a lot. It was a lot.
I think that's still, like, even ballpark is still really important, because if somebody's listening to this and wants to try this strategy, like, how many calls after the first 100? I just don't want them to get discouraged. It takes 200 calls, 300 calls to get there before you get a maybe or a kind of a yes, and then you have to work that deal through.
For every 100 phone calls of people I actually get through
Mm-hmm.
to, because even most of the calls I make, you're not even getting through to somebody. But for every 100 conversations, maybe 90 or 95 will say no. 5% might say yes, I'm interested, and maybe only one is actually feasible. You know, and then even then, it's a shot in the dark if you're actually going to be able to make a deal. Because there was a deal I was looking at recently in a rural market here in Colorado. The business wasn't even making any money, and the guy wanted $2 million for it. And I said, "How did you substantiate that number?" He said, "Well, all the assets that and it's just yeah." And I realized this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just takes a lot of volume. It takes a lot of volume. And one thing that has made this specific industry more challenging, there is a lot of unprofitable companies. I would say the
Mm-hmm.
vast majority, probably 80% of all the financials I've seen, these businesses are losing money or breaking even or something, or making such a marginal profit. You're either really successful and you're growing and you're scaling your business, or you're just one of another million chuck in a truck contractors or something. And almost all of them have the same problems, where their payroll is out of whack, their pricing is too low. It's like, it's almost comical. It's a broken record. I keep seeing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm sure you guys
Very
see that a
accurate.
lot.
Yeah, it's very commonplace, and one, because it's an old fragmented industry, in the sense that 10 years ago the trades had very little help. They had very little focus. There was no CRM systems. There was no, this is all the growth that we've seen in some of these big companies like Peterman Brothers. They've only happened in the last 10 years. Hoffman Brothers last 10 years, John Wilson last 10 years. It's this last 10-year segment that it has seen the actual growth and kind of maturity of the industry itself. But yeah, we see that a lot. Or that it's so small and it works for one owner, but there's no systems in place to make it viable under volume, and then they still want $1 million for it. That's generally the number's always 1 million. It's always seven, or was it 6 figures? No, 7 figures. Always 7 figures, no matter how big the business is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a vanity thing, it feels like.
And basically the narrative that I actually use this when I prospect when I'm deep in conversations with people, but it's very accurate. Most business owners in this market are people that are either a master plumber, master HVAC tech, master electrician, excellent at the trade. One day their boss pisses them off. They say, F you, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna be my own boss. I'm gonna go work for myself. They go they buy a white van, they put so-and-so LLC on it, and they say they're in business. And because they're great at the trades, they're naturally able to start picking up work. But they're not business people. They're terrible at marketing or managing people. They don't know how to market a business, and HR, legal. They struggle with all that stuff. And so just naturally they start building up a business, but they still have this mindset of just, it's like the E-Myth talks about it. They're excellent at the actual trade, but they're not good at running a business. And so you see this whole proliferation of these small contractors that are $1, $2, $3 million contractors. A lot of them don't even get to 3 million because
I was gonna say sub 3 million.
Yeah. Because, and Jim says it great. He says there's only so much you can blow up the balloon. These people don't realize the idea of scaling and delegating and building systems, because if a business is not dependent on a system, it's dependent on a person. There's only so much you could do. These people are control freaks also. They're involved in every part of the business, and they're not good at everything. So you see a lot of these businesses, and then the same people that are wanting $1 million for the business, it's the man doing all the work, and maybe his wife does the bookkeeping and accounting and all that, and they both want to depart. They want all their money up front, and they want to depart, and they're the ones that do 80% of the work in the company. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So
probably one of the most important decisions you can make in your ETA journey is which SBA lender you are going to pick. A lender who will be in your corner to get you closed on the deal, as well as set you up for future expansion. That is why we partnered with Alan Peterson from First Internet Bank. He and his team take a how can we approach, as well as I personally know they specialize in home service acquisitions. Mention the show or my handsome bald head and receive a reduced good faith deposit, as well as a detailed deal review and maybe even a buy-side pre-qualification. No strings attached. Head on over to alanfib.com. That's ALANFIB.com, or click the link below to get connected.
And so let's move on to hot water. I mean, that's all actually amazing information for everyone listening. But in respect of time, I really want to get to this first deal in hot water now. So you buy hot water now. Was it one of these companies, or was it $5-10 million?
No,
monster?
so I'll be very candid with. We were in the words of my chairman, we're opportunistic, and we saw an opportunity that we jumped on. That I'll just explain it. Also, started cold calling. Got through to the owner of this company. Asked him if he was interested in selling. He said he was possibly interested. So I end up getting his financials. I have a meeting with him, or I had a meeting with him first. Talks a bit about the company. Then he sends me his financials. I take one look at it, and I'm like, what is this? I mean, it's just $1 million contractor that wasn't really making any money. In fact, I'm pretty sure he lost like $100,000 or something on $1 million, right? It's just, what is this? So immediately, 5 minutes after looking at the P&Ls, I sent him an email and I said, I'm sorry, but this doesn't really work for us, and I passed on it.
Yeah.
Then a few days later, he comes back and I get a text message, and it says, well, hold on, I think we should still talk or something. So naturally, I realize this is somebody that's motivated. So I take maybe a little bit of a deeper look, and I have another conversation with him, and then I call my chairman and I start kind of walking the deal with him. And he told me a story. He told me a story actually when we first started working together of an acquisition he made several years ago. It was like, it's not a small company. It was like a $6 or $7 million contractor, but they weren't making any money. The business grew way too quickly and started like almost imploding on the seller. And he was just so stressed out. He like almost was going to have a croak. He was going to croak. He just wanted to get out. And he was one of Jim's training clients, because Jim runs a company called SBE, which is just kind of a training platform. And so it was one of his contractors. So naturally he approached Jim and said, I can't do this anymore. And Jim wasn't in a position at that time to want to buy a company, but he saw the opportunity. So he basically proposed an idea to sign a management services agreement to basically allow him to manage the business with the right to buy it in the future. Now, Jim is experienced. He has all of the clout to be able to pull that off, but that was in my mind. And so I just kind of threw a dart in the wall with this one and saw if it stuck, and it actually did. So I started talking to the owner of Hot Water Now, and I told him, hey, your business isn't really investable, but I see a big opportunity. I know you have a great team, and I know we could grow it. It's just it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And so I just kind of pitched him on this idea of like, well, I don't mind coming in and operating the business with the right to buy it in the future. And the reason I'm saying all this is because he actually gave us access to his QuickBooks account, and I realized there's just spending problems. It wasn't even that the business was necessarily losing all that money. When I see a $5,000 Norwegian Cruise Line expense and Amazon expenses,
personal piggy bank.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if this business is actually losing money. I think it's just fiscally mismanaged. And obviously the basic stuff like pricing is too low and all that type of stuff. So to make a long story short, we ended up signing a deal where I am effectively the owner of the business. I have sole control of the bank accounts. I have complete operational authority. Technically, I'm not the owner. I have the right to buy the assets anytime during the next 3 years at a price that's fixed to the outstanding liabilities on the balance sheet. So if I even pay down the debt in the future, that my kind of price drops. And so since we've been here, we closed February 4th. By the time we finished up the month, February 28th, we were in the black because I just went through and cut every expense that was like, it's just
no more personal piggy bank.
Yeah. So once I took away all the credit cards and shredded them, and increased pricing and started putting a lot of focus on how do I get the guys to sell more and incentivize them, I started paying commissions. For the first month we were there, I told everybody, I'll pay you your hourly rate or commission, whichever is greater. And lo and behold, almost all of their paychecks have been better with commission. So they're starting to kind of see they see the light now. I'm helping them sell more. And so I'm sure it could have panned out a lot worse. I'm sure people could have quit on me the first day or something, but at least where we're at, the way the agreement was written is I had no liability other than I could have wasted my time if things didn't work out, but I could have walked away technically, but I think, that's not really my personality. It's like, I just got to fix this now. But,
incredibly interesting. That's a really creative way. So we hear a lot about creative financing in these deals like this and reducing risk and reducing liability. And this sounds like a wonderful way to do it. And like you said, there's no financial risk on you personally, which I think is a big point to your first deal is, right? Most of the time people are signing PGs. They're personal guaranteeing all of their assets. And like you said, you had real estate, so that would have to go up. And so there's a lot of moving parts there. But I think that's a really interesting way of looking at a deal that might not pencil from a debt to service income ratio standpoint, but from a seller financing, this isn't even seller financing. This is just like seller.
It's really
giving and management fees.
Yeah.
So then how does the seller?
They gave up.
Did he have to pay for that?
The seller is,
or you have to pay him for that.
Okay. So basically, in an agreement like this, the seller becomes an employee of the company, and you still want to keep them because they typically hold the licenses and all that stuff. But at least kind of where I sit is I have kind of the trump card, if you will, in the organization. I could operate it as I please. I have full control over the money. I could allocate it however I want. But again, the general idea is just to grow the business as much as I can, get it profitable, get it scalable, and then from there at some point get a loan and refinance their existing debt.
Yeah, that makes sense. So he gets paid a little bit down the line, but with the idea that you come and operate it better, and so he should make it sellable in 2 years.
In this particular case, when I buy it, he wouldn't actually be walking away with anything other than having his liabilities taken out. And just to give you an idea, so in 2024, the business only did $1 million in revenue. We're operating at like $1.5 million company at the moment. And if all goes to plan, I'm leveraging the exact agreement I just did to do another deal with the exact same structure. And so there is a $2.4 million plumbing, heating, and electrical business 15 minutes down the road from me that we're just finished up the contract with. So we'll probably get it signed probably this week. Once we close that, we should be sitting around $4 million. No money down, no financial risk. technically all the risk is still on the seller, but I don't want to come across like I'm swindling these people or anything like that. They're lawyered up. They know exactly what they're getting into. They're just
Yeah.
burnt the heck out. They're tired and they want somebody to just kind of help them. And the reality is if you're running a $5 million operation, making $1 million a year, you're going to command a pretty nice paycheck, right? At closing.
Which, I mean, this is all why John and I call the $1 to $3 million range is like owner hell. Because the minute that they start hiring employees and start trying to do marketing and they sign up with all these garbage agencies, they're just throwing their money down the drain and their net. They start to see it shrinking. And then they get to a point where they're just going, I'm running on $60K a year salary and like $10K in net swings that could bring me to the point of bankruptcy and lose my house and lose all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear, like there is a very large space for these kind of deals because the benefit is, hey, this has been run so poorly and levered up so hard that the other outcome for a lot of these owners is bankruptcy and complete
100%.
loss.
100%.
So, I mean, somebody coming in with an experienced operator, experienced team with a turnaround month 3 of buying or doing a manager agreement with this other business. I mean, there's a big draw to a lot of people.
I mean, there's benefits for both parties. I mean, if you look at it from their perspective, they're running an unprofitable business that has debt. And like you said, the path is typically bankruptcy at some point. You can't really sell a business like that, especially if it is poorly run to the point where you are the guy wearing all the hats, doing everything. You're not going to really be able to sell that business. It's not saleable. There's no value to it, right? People, a business that's independent from the owner and a business that serves the owner as opposed to the owner serving the business, that's one that's attractive and saleable, right? And so they're just kind of stuck with this albatross around their neck where they got to bankrupt themselves to kind of get out of it. So from their perspective, they have a knight in shining armor coming in to kind of save the day. And from a buyer's perspective, it's very attractive where, yeah, you're maybe picking up an ugly duckling, so to speak, but all you're putting in is sweat equity as opposed to real equity. And so it becomes very attractive monetarily once you get in and you actually operate the business. And so, and to us, obviously, with this next deal, that'll really kind of get us to the critical mass that I think that we need to be able to really start to grow this. So, I mean, the moment we ink this, we'll be sitting around 4 million, and the goal is to get to $10 million by the end of the year, and that's going to be done through obviously acquisitions, and then I used to say organic growth, but I'm copying my chairman. He taught me he uses growth through execution because that's really what it gets down to. I mean, people to be profitable or unprofitable, it's just executing on the basics. Are you pricing appropriately? Are you, when you go to a house, are you going straight over to the water heater and fixing the problem and getting out? Or are you slowing down and building a whole ticket? And it's just all the basics. So,
We talk about that a lot in owned and operated side of the business is what you hit on is one of the keys is there's a difference between you came in with the team with a very, very experienced individual who understood how to grow an HVAC company. But from the other side of the coin, right, there's so many small contractors that just don't know how to price. They don't know what sales is. They've never gone to a Next Star training or an SBE training or a certain path training. And so it's a very, tumultuous first couple of years for them as they try to grow. But very cool. I mean, so you're going to get with this second acquisition, you'll reach enough velocity to get through the quote unquote owner's hell point. You'll be in the 5 million range, which should offset enough money to grow organically if you wanted, but your goal is to hit those phones some more.
yeah, so the goal is to end the year at a $10 million run rate and then the next year at 27 million. And my chairman asked why 27, and I said I want more millions in revenue than years on hold. So that was kind of the whole idea behind 27 million. But yeah, this is all I obsess
Some
over.
ambition, man.
No, thank you.
I
No.
know that's awesome. I mean, we have the same goal, not 27, but we're 20 million, but we'll do it in 7 years is our goal. So, I mean, to go for anyone listening, to go from 0 to even 10 million in 1 year is pretty outstanding. So I that's why I had to get you on here. I knew you're an awesome operator and you've been doing a great job so far. So I know everybody had to hear this.
No, I appreciate it. And I'm not going to take credit for anything. If I were to take my shirt off and turn around, you'd see a footprint on my back from my chairman's boot, just kind of being pressed against it. So I have a lot of pressure on me from my team, but that's what I enjoy. So, again, I don't pretend to know anything. I'm very grateful to my team because they've taught me everything. And so, I mean, if I could give one piece of advice to anybody, go out and find people. I mean, if your goal in life is to be the best chef you could ever find, go find a Michelin star chef and go, train and learn from them, right? Just find somebody who's been there and done that and has achieved the things that you want to in a very meaningful way, and copy them, learn from them. I mean, they'll mentor you, and you got to ask. You got to ask. And so, I just
Step one is to buy a list of all the Michelin star chefs. Step two is then to
Call.
repeatedly call and text them until they either tell you yes or no. Oh man, that's crazy.
You go out and find people,
Is there any point where you are going to remove yourself? Because I think this is an important distinction, right? Is that there's a lot of people out there doing a similar strategy, but the key difference is that they hire somebody else to do the calling. It's somebody in the Philippines, or it's
Doesn't work.
overseas,
Doesn't
or
work. Doesn't
yeah,
work. If you want the best results, you got to
it
do it
has to
yourself.
be you.
You can't get an Indian telemarketer or someone from the Philippines to do it. Your success is in the work that you're avoiding, and you're just chickening out of doing the work
Hmm.
by trying to outsource it. You're not being smart. You're not. That's if there's one thing that moves the needle for me the most, it's cold calling. That is the single. Like, if there was the highest and best use of my time, if I just locked myself in an office for 8 hours and I said nobody's allowed to disturb me and all I'm doing is cold calling, that will be the thing that will move the needle the most in the company. Because that's how I could pick up another $3 million in revenue with another deal or something like that. So if anything, that's the only thing I should be doing. So I actually want to pull myself out of the operations more than anything. Now, the only reason I'm involved in the operations now is, first of all, obviously, being ugly duckling turnarounds, I have to be I have to kind of put a lot of attention towards this. But also, I'm just saying I have to earn my stripes. So I have to kind of go through the phase where I have to cut my teeth, earn my stripes. I need to learn the business. I need to know what it's like to go out in the field and put out fires and do all that type of stuff, because I'll learn throughout the process, and I'll also earn the respect of my team because they know that I'm willing to actually be there with them. Anytime they call me, I'm there for them. But in time, I do want to pull myself out of the operations and focus solely on growing the business. How can we find the next deal? Where can we get capital? All that type of stuff.
Yeah, I do have this one's an interesting one for you. A question is, at some point there's going to be diminishing rates of return, right? So I've seen this with John's business. John bought a bunch of businesses in circa 2020 to 2024, and he's grown this, $30 million monster. A $1 million business now doesn't move the needle for him. A $3 million business really doesn't move the needle for him, especially when you look at the debt that would require to get. Putting that into a marketing system or something would drive significantly more value. So at what point do you see the acquisition channel that you're working on? Because you probably could get to 27 million doing solely acquisitions, but at some point there's going to have to be some switch to focus on organic.
Yes. This is one of those things where, if you get the right partners, it'll morph over time, right? And so, luckily, having the blessing of, actually, I have two partners. One operated a $60 million company and one 50. When the time is right, they start to drop new information and show me, okay, now you've got this problem. So I know a lot of this stuff will happen over time, and I realize, let me create those problems first before worrying about it. So let me get to that size and then figure out how to crack through it. But I ultimately do want to write a check and buy a $10 million operation or a $20 million operation. So I do want to scale that up. And so, to me right now, I am picking up the low hanging fruit until I build something that is spitting out enough cash and we've kind of built our well-oiled machine where now we could just continue to scale it organically or through executing. And then from there, yeah, there's a million ways to do it. One of the things I've even been thinking about is, maybe we grow to a certain scale where we get to 20, 30 million and then break into a new market. And instead of trying to take the $30 million company to a $60 million company, I would argue that that's almost probably harder to go from 30 to 60 than to maybe go up into a new market and take a $5 million contractor and start blowing that up. And also, the more you scale, you're actually taking on a bunch more overhead. Your margins start to shrink. When you're running a $10 million operation, you could probably maintain a 20-25% margin. You can't really do that on 50 million. You have so much more overhead. You have so much more expenses as well. And I actually saw an operator recently. They're doing $80 million from 8 locations. They have 8 different geographical locations at 10 million, and they're able to maintain pretty nice margins doing that. So again, I don't know if you agree or disagree with any of that stuff. Bottom line is, I don't really know the answer. I'll figure it out in the future, but just I don't know.
What will be the coolest thing is to go back in 2 years and listen when you actually get there. You hit your 27 million, you start trying to go to second, third location, you listen, or you say that was absolutely silly of me to even ever say that, and I'm just going for that 80. And so that's the cool part about doing these things is you actually get to look back at some of the old sayings and ideas that you had at the time, and then rehash them. So very cool. Elias, if people want to get a hold of you or if they want to, follow your journey, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you could either find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to our parent company's Frost and Flow. So you could look that up. I mean, we're actively buying in the Colorado market. So if anybody happens to want to exit or something like that, but look me up, Elias Youssef. I'm on LinkedIn. I respond to all my messages. If you just send me a message or something like that, I'm happy to have a conversation.
Perfect. That was Elias Youssef, and we will link his LinkedIn in the description below. So go ahead and take a look for him there. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. We're trying to grow this Jackquisitions thing out, and so we'd love to hear your thoughts. Send us an email at info@ownedandoperated.com if you have any suggestions, and we appreciate y'all. Thank you much.